Hey everybody, this is Mike C. Graves bringing you another video on regarding no ceiling real estate. And this video is specifically about how to prepare and pass the real estate exam. So as a broker over the last 14 years here in the state of Ohio, I have probably seen success fail rate drop from about 80% first time through on both sections of the test down to probably about 40% of the time. So why is that? I think there's a couple of things. One is I think the online classes have taken away that classroom setting a little bit and the ability to kind of learn as a group. Secondly, I think the state has purposefully come out and said, hey, we want to raise the bar. So they've made the test a little harder. There are two sections to the test. There's a national and a state level. And in the both sections, you must pass with a success rate of 70% or higher. If you have 69% or less, you would then have to retake that section and that section only. You aren't required to take the whole test over again. So let's kind of talk about what I think are best practices on how to get through the test. The first one is you need to devote the appropriate amount of time to master the topic. You can't just show up at the test and hope you're going to pass. You're going to have to study. There's a number of questions that are in the books and through some crammer classes that are available that I think you need to spend probably a good week to a week and a half studying for this. The second one is you need to know your weakness. So where you know your weakness, you understand where you need to spend more time. And for me, that was learning the dates of how different laws might have lined up and things as such. So for some people, it's the math. I hear that a lot as far as the math goes. But you need to spend more time on your weakness. Each test is different. Some tests are weighted more towards people where it doesn't pick on anybody specifically. It's all random, but sometimes you may get a math heavy test versus not. The real estate school that you went to most likely has a crammer class or an online study class. I know that's additional funds, but I would encourage you to consider going through and paying for that. In my experience, that is very much worth the wait the money that you would pay for it. So let's kind of go through some tricks on how to take the test. These set of tricks that I used when I took the test is also what I help and share with others when they join my brokerage. So for me, again, remember the negative thing or the things that I was weak at were studying for dates as it pertained to law. And so I would be sitting in the car early before taking the test. So if the test time for me was at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, let's say, I most likely was at that testing facility by 9:15. I was sitting there, and that way at least I got past was there bad traffic, any negatives that may come with getting to the testing facility. I would tell you to sit in the car, and I would tell you to cram your brain with as much of that information that is weak to you, or that you feel like that you struggle to retain. And I would tell you to kind of just take all that in. I would tell you to then go straight into the testing facility, kind of go through, who you are. You're going to have to provide driver's license and such. They're going to put you in front of a test. They're going to give you a couple scratch pieces of paper. I would tell you to take those pieces of paper when you start the test, and don't even begin taking the test. I would tell you to take the two pieces of paper and do a brain dump of everything that you can have going through your head at that very moment, and just kind of create your own study guide, if you will. For me, it was maybe putting math formulas. Maybe it was putting those dates for the laws and things like that. What that does is it allows your body and your mind to relax and say, hey, I've got the information. It's on the piece of paper. It allowed you to reference that information later, but it allowed your mind to release a little bit. I would tell you as you go through the test, you're going to be given each screen has a question and a set of multiple choice answers. You have the ability to mark that question as mark for later, or you have the ability to answer the question itself. So the questions tend to be the answers tend to be defined such that there isn't really a clear, yeah, it's B or yeah, it's D. You can really kind of narrow it down to two answers, and then you're going to have to pick the best one of the two. The answers are there. It's just, that's just what to expect. So I would tell you, go through the whole test. If you know the answer to the question, mark it that because you know it. But if you're not sure of the answer, mark the question to come back to it later. And then every time you mark one of those questions that you know are right, put a little tally mark on that piece of paper. It gives you a running total when you take the first pass through the test to say, hey, do I think I've got a 50%, 60%, 70%, so on and so forth. It gives you a little bit of security before you hit that final button that then determines your fate, so to speak. So the second time through, you're now looking at the questions that you weren't sure of the answers on. And so what you're doing then is, I promise you, if you do it this way, there will be questions somewhere in the second pass through that you now know the answer to because you've now been through the entire test, and it's given you information that may have helped you answer question 12 that was you narrowed it down to two, but you really didn't know the answer. But maybe question 60 gave you something that narrowed down the two to the one answer in number 12. So then when you're done, always being mindful that you're on a time restriction in taking the test, keep in mind that time permitting, I would go through it one more time just to kind of sit back in your chair, relax a little bit, read the question, and see if you can determine what the answer is without looking at the four options. And be real conscious to be purposeful, I guess I should say, if you make a change. So if question 12 was one that you decided to change from A to C, statistically speaking, they say when you make a change like that, you tend to make more mistakes than not. So you have to be extremely purposeful in having a reason for making change the third pass through. At the end, you're going to click on the submit button for it to be graded. And when you get up and walk out to the proctor, they're either going to congratulate you or they're going to tell you you're going to need to retake one of the two sections. At that point, we're going to assume that you passed, and that's when you would celebrate, and then you would kick into full gear and reach out to your broker and celebrate with them and figure out what you need to do next to get through your licensing and the onboarding process, because now we have to get you in the MLS, the MLS, and we have to get business cards and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that have been waiting on you to pass the test that now we can invoke and execute. So hopefully this was of help. Again, this was how to prepare and pass the real estate exam. I would expect that this was helpful. Again, this is Mike Seagraves with No Ceiling Real Estate. I would encourage you to click on the subscribe button. And as we see videos come out in the future, they will alert you so that you can watch those going forward. My videos in the future will be geared towards diving in deeper and becoming an effective producing real estate agent. Take care. Have a great day.